Hello guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm gonna make a crash course of AutoCAD, and after you watch this course, you're gonna be able to use AutoCAD in a very basic way, but that basic way is gonna allow you to create real work. That said, let's get started. So this is AutoCAD, and in order to create a new drawing, we need to go here to the new tab, and a new drawing is going to appear. So the first steps that we are going to do is we're going to learn how to navigate. So if you roll the scroll up and down, you're going to be able to zoom in and to zoom out. Sometimes the command bar is not visible here, so in order to bring that back, we're going to press Ctrl 9, and Ctrl 9 gives you the command bar available. Then you can increase the size here to look at the history, and that's it. We're gonna start with the basic drafting tools, and the first tool that we're going to use is the line tool, which is on this corner right here. You can see also that there are different tabs depending on the type of work you're gonna do. This is the tabs that you may use, but in this video we're gonna stick to the home tab. And another important thing is to look at which is the working space that you're working, because AutoCAD has different templates to work. And if you click here on these three lines, you can see the workspace switching comes on and off right here. And as you can see right now, we are on drafting and annotation. This can be changed to 3D basics, 3D modeling, but for now, make sure that you are on drafting and annotation for this tutorial. Right, so like we said, we're gonna start with line. On the draw section, basically the main tools that you are gonna be using is line, polyline, and we're gonna talk about the differences in a second. So we're gonna start with line, and I'm gonna create a line from this point up to this point. So for creating the line, the second point, as you can see, you can go anywhere that you like. If you wanna go on a perfect straight line, north, south, west, or east or west, you need to click on this little icon right here, which is called ortho. So ortho allows you to go in a straight line in any direction. So we're gonna go in ortho and we're gonna click 3000. Before we continue, we're gonna check our units, and to check our units, you need to type the command units, enter, and as you can see, we are working on millimeters. So this is really handy for landscape design. We're gonna press OK. And another important thing on the setup of your drawing is this grid on the back. So personally, I don't like it. So if you click right here, you're able to switch off or switch on the grid. And for this case, we're gonna stick to the grid switch off. Now, as we keep learning the drafting commands, I'm gonna be showing you some modify commands, and I'm gonna be mixing in between because I feel that is the best way for learning. Right. So the first modify command that we're going to learn is called offset. So offset allows you to create a parallel copy of your line. So in this case, I'm gonna offset, and then I'm gonna type the distance, which is gonna be 150 millimeters. And this allows you to create an offset either up or down. In this case, I'm gonna delete this one. And then I am gonna create another offset, which is gonna be 1500 millimeters, and then that's gonna go up right here. Let me close this, and then I'm gonna create another offset that is gonna be 150 millimeters. So offset tool is pretty straightforward, and now we're gonna take a look at the command polyline. So the difference between polyline and line is that on a polyline, when you create several points, this polyline is just a single polyline. And if you do the same with a line, you will notice that after you finish creating your line, these ones will be different sections of line. But it doesn't matter if you first create lines and then you want it to become a polyline, you can join them all together. So you can select all of them and then you can type join. So join command automatically will turn this into a polyline. If you want to know if a section of line is a polyline or a line, you can type the command properties, and then on this panel it's gonna tell you if it's a polyline or if it's, for example, a line right here. So if you select this line, it's gonna tell you right here this line. And I'm gonna take this opportunity on the property panels to get a little bit deeper. So on the property panels, you can change the color, for example, of a polyline. You can change the line type, and you can change, for example, the global width. The global width is like a thickness to the line. So if you want a line to be shown a little bit wide, you can type, for example, here 30, and that's gonna make the line 30 millimeters thicker. Now we're gonna go for the circle tool. Circle tool is pretty straightforward. You need to start by clicking in the center of your circle, and then you need to select the radius. So for this circle, I'm gonna choose a radius again of 3000. And now we're gonna use one of the most used tools in AutoCAD, and this one is called Trim. Trim allows you to cut lines and polylines, and the shortcut is TR. So something that I really like of AutoCAD 2026 is that as soon as you start typing a command, AutoCAD by default gives you the suggestions of all the commands that start with TR. In this case, trim. So I'm gonna trim right here, and I am gonna trim right here. Now we're gonna look at another command that is very useful, which is called extend. And extend does pretty much the opposite as trim. So with extend, you can extend the line right here and extend the line right here. So you have trim and you have extend. These two are the commands that are typically used one time after another. Another important thing is, for example, if you right click and then you go here to recent input, you will be able to see the commands that you have used recently. And this is really handy when you don't want to type them again and you just want to do it quite quick. The rectangle tool is very handy when you know exactly what are the dimensions that you want to create, or if you have some reference points. So in order to this, you first need to click on one side, and then you need to click on the other one. If you want to type the measures exactly, you need to do it this way. So first, you're gonna click on the starting point, and then you're gonna click at mark, and then you're gonna type the x-axis, which is gonna be 3000, and then you need to type comma, and then 3000, and that instructs the software to know that you are inputting the x-axis and the y-axis, and then if you click enter, you will end up with a square that is 3 by 3. One of the commands that is very used for modifying squares or rectangles is called fillet. So fillet command allows you to round edges. So for example, in this case, I want to round these two edges. And the first thing you need to do after you type the command fillet is to choose the radius of the curvature that you want to generate. So for doing that, I'm gonna click here on radius, or you can alternatively type the letter R. So can you see this radius has like a blue R here, and then multiple has like a blue M right here. So basically that's the shortcut. In this case, I'm gonna manually click on radius, and I'm gonna choose a radius of 1500 millimeters. And then I'm gonna be able to curve this edge like this. So see, this is really handy when you are creating perfect curves. For this one, I'm gonna reduce the radio, and then I'm gonna do fillet again. I'm gonna change the radius to 500, and then this will allow me to make a curve right here. Another very nice command to do something similar but in a straight line is called chamfer. So chamfer is gonna be doing the same but in a straight line, and in this case, instead of selecting the radius, you need to select the distance. So we're gonna type D instead of clicking here, which is the same distance, and then I want the straight line to be 1000. Then click enter, and then you're gonna click on this side and then on this side, and that's gonna create a perfect straight line for our geometry. Now we're gonna go a little bit deeper in what you can do with a polyline, because polylines are really handy when you want to create bespoke curve shapes. And for doing that, I'm gonna click on a polyline. Again, the shortcut is PL. And then I'm gonna start drafting something. So I'm gonna deactivate my ortho command. For deactivating the ortho command, shortcut is F8. And with F8, deactivate allows you to go anywhere. And then instead of going on straight lines, I'm gonna click here on arc. So arc gives you the option to start drafting with an arc. And it's gonna be something like this. And then it's gonna go this way, and somewhere here. Now, what happens if you want to create an arc that is irregular and you want to choose exactly what's the radius of each? So for doing that, I'm going to repeat the polyline command. And then I'm going to start here this time. And I'm going to click arc again. And then once I am inside arc, I am going to choose the second point, because as you can see right here is quite limited. So I can only start the arc in these directions. But if I click second point right here, I'm gonna be able to go, for example, in this part of the model space and start creating my arc there with the point that I am specifying. So it gives you a little bit more of freedom when you want to do curves in a different way. So I'm gonna go right here, right here, right here, and then I'm gonna intersect these two. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pretend these two lines are footpaths, and for doing that I'm gonna offset that 1500 millimeters inside and then outside, and then I'm gonna do the same with this one, and then I'm gonna do this one. It's very important that when you work in AutoCAD you start organizing or you're drafting in a coherent way, and for doing that we're gonna dive into layers. So for entering the layers panel, we're gonna tap LA. As you can see, everything that I have drawn up to this point, it's drawn inside the layer 0, which is the default layer in AutoCAD. I'm gonna create a new layer, and this new layer is gonna be called axis. Then this axis, I'm gonna change the color of this layer to this pinky right here. And also I want to change the line type. So changing the line type allows you to have different types of line. When you click on the line, only the solid line will appear. But then you need to click here on this load button, and then you can select for any line type that you want. So these ones come by default in AutoCAD 2026. And for this exercise, I'm gonna choose ISO-line type. Then you need to click OK. And after that, you need to select it one more time right here and then click OK. As you can see, the line type has been selected now, but we are still on the 0 layer. So we need to click on this layer twice, or another way of doing it is selecting this button right here, which means set current. So again, I'm gonna go to axis, make it my current layer. Then I am gonna minimize my layers panel. And now I am going to create a polyline. So this polyline is gonna be very simple. I'm just gonna drop it right here as a single line that is gonna be a sample. And then as you can see, you cannot see very well that it's a dash line, and that's because the line type scale is quite big or quite small. So here on the property panels, if this is closed, remember to type properties. You can change the line type scale, for example, from 1 to 50. And that allows you to see the dashed line in more detail. For this exercise, I am gonna choose 100, which looks quite good. And then the reason I created this line is because I want to transfer the properties from this line to my axes. And the way to do that is with the command match properties. So match properties, you type MA, and usually it's the first one that appears. You click on that command, and then it's telling you to select the source. So my source is gonna be this pink line, and then it's telling you to select the destination. So the destination object is gonna be this one, and it's gonna be this one as well. Now, because I don't need this anymore, I can delete it. And here I'm gonna do a little bit of interesting tricks. So we're gonna do the same commands that we already learned. It's trim, and for doing trim, I'm gonna trim right here, trim right here, trim right here, one more time here, one more time here, and one more time here, and also here and here. so this footpath connects in between. And usually in landscape design, these sharp corners don't work really well, so I'm gonna apply the fillet command, and I am gonna choose a radius of 500 millimeters, and I am going to fillet this edge with this edge, this edge with this edge, and this one with this one. So let's say that you want to change the radius now again, and you want to apply the same fillet command again. Fillet radius 1000, and you can fillet this corner with this corner, and this corner with this corner. Let's say that you want to create a lighting bollard, that comes all across the path right here. So for doing that, the first thing that I'm going to do is gonna go to the layers panel again, and I'm gonna create a new layer that is gonna be called bollards. I'm gonna change the color to this beautiful green, and then I am gonna change the line type to continuous. And for creating this bollard, we're gonna take a look at a few other commands. So here on the draw panel, if you click on this arrow right here, you're able to select the polygon tool. So with the polygon tool, the first thing that tells you is to enter the number of sides. For this bollard, I'm gonna choose 6 sides, and then I'm gonna specify the center. So the center is gonna be here, and then it's telling you if you want the hexagon to be inside the circle, or if you want the hexagon to be just circumferent about it. So I'm gonna select inscribed, and then I'm gonna select a radius of 250 millimeters, and then as you can see, this is on the dashed line because I am on the axis layer. So another way of changing objects from layer is if you select this one and then you go to bollards. Before we continue with the bollard exercise, we're gonna talk a little bit about selections. So as you can see, when I am selecting from down to up, this green box appears. But if you're going down to the right, it changes to blue color, and that has a meaning. So when you are using the green box, you only need to touch a little bit, and then the full shape will be selected. But if you are using the blue one and you only select a bit, it's not going to select it completely. You need to cover the full thing. Another way of selecting is if you hold the button of the mouse, you can do exactly the same thing and you can go freestyle around. Or you can go the other way. So it's up to you how you want to select things. In my case, I usually just go like this. And then I am going to create an offset to give a bit more of detail. The offset is going to be 500 right here. And then inside here, just in the middle, I am going to extend from the midpoint, and we're going to talk about the snapping points very soon. So as you can see, this bollard has endpoint, midpoint, endpoint. These are called snapping points. So the snapping points are controlled in this button right here. If you deactivate them, no snaps are going to appear. So you select polyline, and as you can see, it's not giving me any snapping points. The shortcut on the keyboard is F3, and when you activate with F3 this box right here, you will be able to snap to certain points. Now, it's up to you which points do you want the software to recommend you to snap, and in order to control that, you need to do Control, right click, and then you can go to OSnap settings right here. At the moment, I have activated the endpoint, which is this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, but also I have activated the midpoint, the center, and the extension. If you activate the perpendicular point, you will be able to look at the perpendiculars, which is really handy when you are drawing in 90 degrees. So as you can see, this is snapping to all the perpendiculars. So this is something that you can control in the OSnap settings. Now, if you don't want to be fully activated, but you just need it for that precise moment, you can right click and select it from this menu, and that will activate it only for that single click. Right. I am going to make my current layer the bollard, and then I am going to draw a circle. And I want to draw a circle just from the center right here. And I am going to do it probably like this. Now I'm going to offset this one more time, 100 millimeters. And that's going to be the basement of the bollard. We want that object to be repeated across the path. But before we do that, I want this to be a block. So a block means that we're gonna make this identity a single identity. So click on block, and we're gonna block this as a bollard, and you will see the reason why. So make it a bollard, and that means that when you select it, you cannot edit it anymore unless you double click and you get inside the actual block that you just created if you want to make more edits. So now we're gonna take when you click close, it tells you if you want to discard the changes or save them. In this case, we didn't do anything to it, so it doesn't matter. And now I'm gonna show you a really nice command. The next command is called array. And before we do the array, I am gonna offset this edge of the path 300 millimeters, and I'm gonna offset inside one more time and then another time. Then I am gonna place my bollard right here, and then I am gonna delete this line and I'm gonna click array. So array is this command right here, and then once we are in the array command, I'm gonna select my bollard, I'm gonna click enter. I am gonna specify that I want a path array. So I'm gonna click on path, and that path is gonna be that path right here. And what is happening is that the bollard is being arrayed across the path. Now there are different parameters that you can control here. We're gonna go on the basics, and for this case we're gonna click on items. Here on items, you are saying that the distance between centers is 969. But if you change that figure, for example, to 4000, that means that the bollards are gonna be every 4 meters. And then we're gonna click OK and enter one more time, and then we have our array. So do you remember we created a block? That has a reason, and the reason we created the block is because now if we decide to edit the block, all of them will be modified. So for doing that, I'm gonna just make a copy of this array right here. I'm gonna put it on the model space. If you want to delete the array from all of these, there is a command that is called explode. So I'm gonna click explode just to get a free copy of this one and be able to manipulate it however I want. And then I am gonna delete all of these ones. And here is a safe copy of our block. So if you double click on this copy, you're gonna enter to the bollard. And let's say that now you want to do a rectangle. So this rectangle is gonna be 400 by 400. And then you're gonna move that rectangle from the center up to the center right here. And then we are gonna delete this right here. And then we're gonna offset this one 50 millimeters to the outside, to the inside. And this is gonna be the new shape of the bollard. And then I'm gonna match the properties from here to here, and then you click OK, save the changes. You will notice how all the bollard instances have been updated by themselves, and that's the reason you need to create blocks, because when you have the same object repeated across your drawing, it makes sense that if you only modify one, all the identical copies will be updated at the same time. Let's see how you can combine these tools and create a little bit of shapes and blocks. Everything on this tutorial is gonna be from scratch. I'm not gonna be using any kind of templates, so it will give you a better understanding on how you can combine these drafting tools. I am gonna go back to layers, and I'm gonna create a new layer. This layer is gonna be called trees, and I'm gonna change the color to this olive green, make it current, and I'm gonna create a tree block. So I'm gonna create a circle with a diameter probably of 900, and then probably a little bit bigger, something like that. A line from the center, something like that, then something like this, then probably like that. And that's gonna be our tree symbol. We're gonna block this tree, so type block again, and we're gonna name this block tree 1. Then we're gonna spread some trees, for example, from here, copy the tree, CO to copy things, and then we're gonna copy the tree from this point to this point. Maybe we can plant another here. There can be 3 trees right here, and here you can have another 3 trees, and then probably some trees scattered. Now, if for example now you decide to change the scale of this tree, to change the scale you need to press SC, and that is gonna change the scale. So let's change the scale of this tree to be a little bit bigger. Then this one is gonna be a little bit bigger as well. And then if we go again to the block size, and then we enter to the block, let's say that you want to add a little bit more of detail to this tree. Imagine that we're gonna add another line, probably like that. Let's make it current, probably make it a bit smaller. And then if you press OK, close the editor, save the changes, those changes will keep the same scale on this scaled block. So it's really handy to use blocks. Now we're gonna keep using the drafting tools to create a little bit more of objects. So let's go back to the layers, and now let's create a new layer that is gonna be called furniture. And we're gonna change the color to probably color number 20, that is a nice orange. We're gonna make current that layer, and we're gonna start crafting a bench right here. So for doing the bench, I am gonna use the rectangle tool, and I'm gonna say I want a rectangle that is 1000 millimeters, by 500 millimeters, and that's gonna give us this piece of timber right here. I'm gonna show you another way that you can use array in a more straightforward, and for doing this you're gonna use the copy command, and inside the copy command you're gonna select this rectangle, go to the endpoint, and here is the trick. So before you click on the first copy, you are gonna use the array command, which is inside the copy command. So click on array, and then it's telling you the number of items to array. So I want 18 items, and then you can control how those items are being spread. So because my timber is 100 millimeters and I want a spacing of 20 millimeters in between, I'm gonna type 120. So I'm gonna use ortho, so I am sure I'm going on a straight line. I'm gonna type 120, and that's gonna give you the timber for your bench right here. Now I'm gonna block this bench, type block again, and let's call this block bench. Now let's move this bench probably here, and now we're gonna see another command. This new command is called rotate, and basically what we want is we want to align our bench with this path, and there is several ways of doing it, but the most logical way is that first of all you move the block close to here to a point on the polyline, and then you're gonna click rotate. For rotating objects you press RO, which is rotate, and then you need to select your object, in this case the bench, right click, enter. So right click means enter. Each time you do right click is like if you press enter on the keyboard, and then first is telling you which is your rotate base point. So we're gonna get it from the corner, and then if you have ortho activated, you will only be able to rotate it on this direction. Let's deactivate ortho and probably just put it wherever you think is right. Be aware that because you have the snaps on, you may be clicking somewhere else, so it's recommended that you deactivate the snaps with F3 or clicking here, and then when the snaps are deactivated, I'm just gonna press right there. I'm gonna move the bench a little bit right here, and now we're gonna do a little bit of a concrete base around the bench so it has like a placement. So for doing that, I am going to go to layers, and I'm gonna create a new layer. This layer is gonna be called concrete, and then I'm gonna change the color to this light gray right here, make it current, and here is when the snappy voice become really handy. The first thing that I'm gonna do is to create a polyline, and then on this polyline I want to intersect the perpendicular point, so I'm gonna control right click and click on perpendicular, and that's giving me automatically this perpendicular point. And then I am gonna offset this line 2000 millimeters from this point up to this point one more time. Then I'm gonna delete this one, and then I am going to create another polyline, and I am gonna apply the same technique, this time from here up to here to the perpendicular point, and I am just gonna move this to a place it feels good. Right, I'm gonna now move the bench, and I'm gonna put the bench roughly in the middle. It doesn't need to be perfect, probably it can be right here, so you have a space for a wheelchair right there. And then I am gonna press trim command, and I am gonna trim this bit, this bit, and this bit right here. So for saving the drawing, you need to press QS, which is save. Now we're gonna take a look a little bit of presentation and how you can start giving more detail to this geometry. I'm gonna create a new layer, and this layer is gonna be called hatches. For the hatches, I am gonna select the white color, and then I'm gonna personalize them. So hatches is a way where you can color in places, and to do that, you can go right here to this button right here, which is called hatch, or the shortcut is H, which means hatch. Once you are in hatch, you can pick where you want to color in, and basically it's like filling in. So for example, if you stand up right here, it's gonna fill that bit, or if you stay right here, it's gonna fill that bit. For this case, I'm gonna fill this one right here, and then I'm gonna press enter. Once you select the hatch, you can go to the panel of hatches right here, and you can select different patterns that are already loaded on CAD. So for this case, I'm gonna choose this concrete right here, and as you can see, the scale of it's quite small. So I'm gonna click on the hatch, and I'm gonna change the scale, for example, to 10. That's too much probably, so I'm gonna bring it back to 2, and that gives you a better graphic aspect. So you can, for example, also rotate the angle to 5 degrees, and that's gonna rotate how it's represented. Hatch is very useful because if you keep hatching your drawing, it's gonna be just more easy for someone to read it. Of course, it needs to be with control. Sometimes it gets very overwhelming if you hatch everything. Now let's keep working on this drawing. So we're gonna imagine that this bit right here is the play area, and before we continue on the play area, I'm gonna go back to the extend command and extend these 2 lines, and also I'm gonna extend the guide, and here we're gonna connect this one from this point. So first I am gonna use the trim command right here. I'm gonna trim here, and I'm gonna try to make a nice curve right here. So for example, if you draw a circle, I want this to look something like this, but I also want this to be a nice smooth curve right here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm gonna take a look at the distance that it's between these 2 lines, and as you can see, it's about 3000 meters. So I'm gonna use the fillet command, and then I am gonna choose radius, and the half of 3700, it's around probably 1800, and then I'm gonna click on this line and on this line as well, and that has give us this night path right here. Now what happens, for example, if you don't want to see these pink lines anymore, but you don't want to delete them because they are quite useful if you want to do some tweaks? So you can go to the layer panels, and you can just either switch them off. It's telling you that this is the layer that I have currently selected. So, I was clicking on the concrete. So you can go to the axes, and you can either switch them off or you can freeze them. The difference with freezing and switching off is that sometimes you need to switch off all the layers, and then you need to bring them off. So if some of the layers are froze, it gives you like 2 ways of controlling layers that are frozen and layers that are on. This is quite handy when you have drawings with hundreds of layers. So some of them you want them to be always freeze. You don't want to be on and off, and then you play with the on and off with the ones that you are constantly working with. So for this case, I'm just gonna freeze it, and I am going to just make this path a little bit more curved. Also, it seems that this is not working right, so let's click on fillet, and let's do the same thing right here, and let's apply a bigger path right here. So now we're gonna imagine this is like the playground area, and we want to hatch some grass right here. First, I'm gonna go bring this line to a width line as well, and I am gonna trim right here. I'm gonna cut right here, join all together, select all, join it, and then I'm gonna show you a nice trick to close these 2 polylines. So the first thing that you could do is either go from this point up to this point, and then you could trim as well right here. But another way of doing it is if you select this polyline, and here on the properties panel, you click on yes, and that will automatically close the polyline. So I'm gonna delete this from here. I'm gonna delete this as well. I'm gonna delete that. I am gonna use hatch command again, I'm gonna hatch on the out area. I'm gonna match the properties from this concrete layer. And then I am gonna go to the hatch editor and I'm just gonna select this grass hatch. I'm gonna change the scale to 30 and I'm gonna change the color to this olive green right here. Let's learn a little bit of dimensions and annotations. For doing this, I'm gonna create a new layer and this new layer is gonna be called annotations. And I'm gonna select this blue color right here. We're gonna go to our annotation layers and we're gonna click here on leader. From leader, we're gonna select on the bench and we're gonna go this way. And then we're gonna type here bench. They're gonna click enter. And as you can see, this is very teeny. And here on the properties, you can change the overall scale to 5. So as you can see, that has made it bigger. Or you can change it, for example, to 30. That's gonna give you a better size for this scale. And of course, if you create styles, which is a little bit more advanced, you can manipulate exactly the type of arrow that you want, the size of the text, the colors, and just make them very personalized. For now, we're gonna do it this way, and I'm gonna change the overall scale to 75. I think 75 is gonna work well. Now, probably you want to make it like this, to be a little bit perpendicular. I think it looks nice like that. So select on the annotation, and change it to white. I think it looks cleaner on white. Now the same thing happens with dimensions. So you will go to linear and then you will create a dimension from this point up to this point and it's gonna give you the dimension in that straight line. But if you want the dimension to be aligned with the edge, you need to click on this arrow right here and select aligned. And then you're gonna click from this point up to this point and then you're gonna go that way. And in this case, in order to change the text size and the size of the arrows, it works a slight difference. So we're gonna go to the dime style panel and this annotation is currently under this style. So what we need to do is to click on modify and now we're gonna here to change the sizes. For example, we want the arrow size to be 100 millimeters. Then we're gonna go to text and we want the text to be 150 millimeters as well. So here on text you can change the text height. On the symbols you can change how the line is represented. For example, I want to change it to dots and also to dots right here. On the lines you can select the colors, you can select how many decimals you want them to show and many other options just to make them a bit more bespoke. For now we're just gonna click OK and then we're gonna close, and as you can see the size of that text is 1500 millimeters like we specified. And now if you create another annotation, that it's gonna keep the same style right there. And then we're gonna go to the utilities. On the utilities you can pretty much measure anything that you like. This tool is really handy, for example, when you want to see what is the radius, what is the distance right here. As you can see, it updates by itself. So it's basically like a consultation tool when you want to know what's happening on your project. Now I'm gonna delete that block right there and we're gonna talk a little bit about the layout. So we need to understand that AutoCAD has two different of spaces. One of the spaces is called the model space, which is an infinite space. If you zoom out, this will become endless. And then you also have the layout 1 and the layout 2, which are physical papers right here. So this is actually a piece of paper and this is another piece of paper. You can create as many as you want. And now we're gonna just create a new one. To create a new one, you can click on this icon right here. It's called as layout 3, which is basically another copy of the other ones. So you can create as many as you want. And then we're gonna start modifying, for example, this one. This one is gonna be called letter paper. Then if you right click here and then you go to page top manager, then you can click on your letter layout, you can modify it, and you can select, for example, the type of paper that you want. In this case, I am going to select letter, and then you can say if it's going to be portrait or if it's going to be landscape. For this case, it's going to be landscape. You can change also the quality of printing to presentation maximum, which basically changes how it's going to be printed. And then you're going to click OK. So as you can see now, this is the edge margin of the letter size paper, and I want to create a personalized viewport. So I'm gonna delete that, and I am going to create a new layer. And this new layer is gonna be called viewports. I'm gonna just put VP. I'm gonna click on this icon, so when we print our drawing, all the line work that we draw with this layer is not gonna be printed. And then I'm gonna make this layer my current layer. And I am gonna draw two different viewports. So I'm gonna go on rectangle right here. And I'm gonna draw a rectangle. Oh, first I'm gonna get my layer. Yeah. I'm gonna do a rectangle right here. And then here on layout, I am gonna go to object right here, and I'm going to select this rectangle that I just did. So if you double click inside here is the manipulation of that precise viewport. And then here on this panel right here, you can change the scale. For example, if you wanted 1 to 10, which is pretty big for this piece of paper, or if you wanted 1 to, for example, 1 to 100, which is also very big. If you want a bespoke scale that it's not available here, the way to do it is like this. So first you need to double click, then you need to type the zoom command, press enter, and then say 1 divided by, in this case, 2000, because I want it to be 1 to 2000, and then you need to put XP at the end. So that means that now that drawing is 1 to 2000. I'm gonna do it again. So just click zoom, enter, and this time I'm gonna do it 1 to 1500. So 1 to 1500, XP, and then enter. And that's drawing, it's 1 to 1500. Now what happens if you want to create, for example, another viewport right here? So this new viewport, color by layer, and then I'm gonna go back to layout, and I'm gonna click on object right here. So that's making this circle to be another viewport. And in a piece of paper, you can have as many viewports as you like. So for example, if you decide to create another one right here, and then you want to make it bigger, and then you want to see this bench in more detail, this is a way of organizing your drawing. Now, if we press Ctrl P to plot this drawing, continue as a plot, here on printers, you can select, for example, the DWG to PDF, which is the most handy one. So select that one, and then just apply to the layout. So each time you print, it's already selected, and then click OK. And then you can save the file. For example, in this case, I'm gonna save it on my desktop. And when you click print, as you can see, the borders of my viewports are not printed because our viewport layer, which is the pink line, was on the non-printing layer. But I'm gonna do it again, and I'm gonna switch off the printing. And then if you do it, if you create one more print, click enter. I'm gonna press 2 to this one, and as you can see, the pink line has been printed. Now we're gonna go back to model space, and here the secret is to understand that this is your drafting space, and here is like literally your paper space, right? And it's really handy that, for example, sometimes you want to change the color style inside your viewports, but you don't want them to be affected on your model space. For example, in this viewport you want to show all the layers in a certain color, and in this viewport you maybe want to show it differently. So that's actually possible. If you double click on this viewport and then you go to the layers, here you will be able to see these. Let me just make this narrower. Here you can see how it has a color, which is the original color, but also it has a viewport color. So if you select all the layers and then on the viewport color, you just make them, for example, this cyan color, you will be able to see how those colors change only on this viewport. And then if you do the same with this one, and then maybe on this one you want to show them all white, you will be able to override all the colors depending on your viewport. And this is really handy because sometimes you want to illustrate different things in your drawings. So far in this course you have learned to use polyline, line, offset, trim, extend, and I guess it's just a bit of practice and creativity in how you can interact with these commands in order to create your drawings. In the professional industry, of course, we use a few more commands to speed up our processes, but I promise you these are the basics that every single landscape architect will use in every day. And with this handful of commands, you can create endless drawings, you can create lots of things. So it's up to you where you want to take these skills. Guys, if you liked the video, consider subscribing to the channel. Feel free to comment any topics that you would like me to cover in the next videos. And also, I would like to offer you an apology for being absent for a few months. I was focusing my energy and my time resources in a professional exam, but now that is out of the table and I'm gonna be focusing back on making more content for you guys. So stay tuned because there's gonna be more things coming on the channel. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you make it up to this part of the video, all I can say is thank you and I hope you had learned lots of things. Thanks for watching.